Alright, recording. So, hi you guys, and welcome to my channel. I'm back with a new reaction video. So, you guys have requested me to check out a video called The Worst Night in NBA History, and then it says The Malice at the Palace. I think it's pronounced like this, correct me if I'm wrong. First I was like Malice, but then you don't say Palace. So, Malice at the Palace? Is that right? But I just want to say I'm not American. English is not my first language and stuff. If you guys are surprised that I don't know, I don't have a clue what we're about to watch. But yeah, I'm not gonna ramble. Let's check out The Worst Night in NBA History. By the way, that felt very wrong to smile about when I was reading it. Like, worst night in NBA history. I didn't mean it like that. Hopefully it's not too crazy. I mean, it probably is because it's the worst.
We're going to take a look at one of the most...
Let's see. Turn up the volume. See what he's talking about.
What's up, guys? Mike here, and today we're going to take a look at one of the most controversial moments in NBA history. I'm talking, of course, about the Malice at the Palace. Now, if you don't know what happened on this night, you are in for a surprise. Because on November 19th, 2004, several members of the Indiana Pacers, such as Ron Artest and Steven Jackson, ended up going into...
Wait, what? I'm sorry. What year was this?
If you don't know what happened on this night, you are in for a surprise. Because on November 19th, 2004, several members of the Indiana Pacers, such as Ron Artest and Steven Jackson, ended up going into the stands of an NBA game to fight fans who had taunted them. But before we can get to that story, we first need to set the stage for what happened on that horrible night. November 19th, 2004 will forever be remembered as one of, if not the worst, moments in NBA history. The Malice at the Palace would put a black mark on the National Basketball Association that would take years to recover from. It would forever change the careers of Ron Artest, Steven Jackson, Jermaine O'Neal, and it would change the Indiana Pacers from a contender to a team that would spend close to a decade searching for an identity. But before the fight, before the Throne Cup, before Artest laid himself down on the table, November 19th, 2004 was just a regular season basketball game. A game that would feature two teams who were very much in contention to win the NBA championship. The Detroit Pistons entered the 2005 NBA season as defending NBA champions. The year before, they had beaten a star-studded Los Angeles Lakers team led by 4 Hall of Famers in a victory that would prove to be monumental in terms of NBA history. The Pistons, led by Chauncey Billups, Rip Hamilton, Tayshaun Prince, Rasheed Wallace, and Ben Wallace, are the only team in NBA history to win a championship without a player who was ever a member of the first team All-NBA. They were a team without a star, and they beat a team full of stars. A true reminder that basketball is just that, a team game. And while everyone remembers the 2004 NBA championship win against the Lakers, they often forget the 2004 Eastern Conference Finals against the Pacers. The Pacers, under coach Rick Carlisle, had finished the 2004 season with the best record in the NBA, winning 61 games with a combination of talent and a rough defensive play style. The regular season matchups between the Pacers and the Pistons were knockout affairs, filled with bad blood, and there was certainly no love lost in their 2004 Eastern Conference Finals matchup. The series was physical, competitive, and featured a signature moment that would foreshadow the future events to come. With 4 minutes left and the score tied in what would be the deciding Game 6, Ron Artest hit Rip Hamilton with an elbow to the face. This foul was determined to be flagrant, and it would not soon be forgotten. Ron Artest's flagrant foul would later be considered the most important play in the game, because the foul lit a fire in the Detroit Pistons, which led to them gaining momentum and ultimately the win, which meant the Pacers went home without a chance to defend their home court on Game 7. But still, they believed they were the better team and were determined to prove themselves to the world. And already in the young 2005 NBA season, the Pacers had begun to build their case that they were the better team. Led by Ron Artest and their new addition Steven Jackson, the Pacers began the season with a 6-2 record, taking a lead in the standings over the Pistons at 4-3. Artest in particular had begun to play at a superstar level. Already known as one of the best defenders in the league, Artest Artest had also begun to significantly raise his offensive level of play. In the 2004 season, he averaged 18 points per game, was the Defensive Player of the Year, was an All-Star, and was named All-NBA third team. In his first 6 games of the 2005 season, Artest was averaging close to 25 points a game to go along with 6 rebounds, 3 assists, and the best defense in the league. This was going to be the season where he took the leap, where his name would rise into the discussion of the best players in the NBA. And then his temper got the best of him.
Which
brings us to November 19th, 2004, otherwise known as the Malice at the Palace. At the time, this just looked like another regular season marquee matchup between 2 premier teams. This game was on national television, it had star power, it had the defending champs playing a team that desperately wanted to beat them. This game should have been one of the great moments to remember in the 2005 season. But as we already have seen with the bad blood between these 2 teams, the seeds had been planted for an absolute disaster. But at first, this game did not seem like a disaster for the Pacers. In fact, it seemed like the complete opposite. With just 57 seconds left in the game, Steven Jackson knocked down 2 free throws, giving Indiana a 15-point lead over the defending champions. The Pacers had dominated the Pistons on their home court, sending a message to the NBA that there was a new top dog in town. But throughout the game, there were clear signs that this was not a friendly matchup on both sides. With around 7 minutes left, Rip Hamilton elbowed Jamal Tinsley in the back in what looked like a flagrant foul, sending the Pacers bench into an uproar. Then, with a minute in the half left, Wallace knocked Ron Artest into the basket support after a block, adding more fuel to the fire. A fire that would eventually lead to this. With under a minute remaining, Ben Wallace caught a pass in the post, turned, and put up a layup in traffic. He was fouled by Ron Artest. It was a hard foul, nothing more. But at this stage in the game, with the outcome decided, Ben Wallace saw this foul as unnecessary. And so, his emotions got the best of him. Wallace hit Artest with a hard shove, which immediately led to a near brawl. Both teams emptied their benches in an attempt to separate the 2 players. And at first, their efforts seemed to be successful. But in an effort to calm down an enraged Ben Wallace, no one paid attention to Ron Artest. In what can only be considered a strange decision, Artest removed himself from the situation by laying down on the scorer's table. He was showered down with a collection of boos from Pistons fans. This was no problem to Ron though. He was a pro, he was used to getting booed. What he was not used to was getting a cup of beer thrown onto his face. It would come from a Detroit Pistons fan named John Green. Amidst the commotion of a near brawl between 2 of the best teams in the NBA, Green lobbed a cup of beer in the direction of Ron Artest. His throw was a direct hit, spilling ice and beer all over Artest's chest and face. Immediately, he sprang to action, ready to punish the man responsible. Seeing this, Pacers radio play-by-play man Mark Boyle attempted to stop him, but Artest was 6'7", 250 pounds of pure muscle. He trampled over Boyle, fracturing 5 of Boyle's vertebrae in his attempts to get into the stands.
Oh my God.
In an attempt to back up his teammate, Steven Jackson followed. The 2 players were in the area of the thrown cup in an instant, but in the confusion, Artest grabbed the wrong fan, a man named Michael Ryan, and
oh my God, Michael! And he didn't even do anything. The thing is, these players have a lot to lose. These fans have not.
Threw him to the ground. Artest
knocked
Ryan
wrong
back
guy.
and forth, screaming at him, "Did you do it?" As Ryan tried desperately to tell him that he had made a mistake.
No.
As this happened, John Green, the man who actually threw the cup, attempted to put Ron Artest in a headlock. This led to another fan throwing a cup of beer at Artest at close range, spraying beer all over Steven Jackson. Jackson responded to this by throwing a haymaker at the fan who threw the beer's head, and then continued to try to punch him as several players, fans, and security tried to defuse the situation. This mayhem unraveled to a live national television audience, with Bill Walton putting everyone's thoughts into words, saying simply, "This is a disgrace." Finally, a combination of people grabbed Artest, leading him down to the court. And while the situation in the stands was clearly an issue, things were no better on the actual court. It was so chaotic, in fact, that 2 Pistons fans made their way onto the court to approach Artest. AJ Shackelford and Charlie Haddad got in Artest's way as he was led to the Pacers locker room. Almost instantly, a screaming Shackelford was punched by Artest in the face. The punch immediately knocked him down, and he brought his friend Haddad down with him. What happened next almost brought this horrible situation to an even worse level. Walking near Artest, Jermaine O'Neal saw the two fans and decided to take action. O'Neal attempted to land a running knockout punch directly at Haddad's face, but slipped in his attempted action. And thank God he did, because if this punch had landed, it would have caused serious, potentially life-threatening damage. Luckily for everyone involved, his punch was off the mark, just glancing the side of Haddad's face. This would be the last of the Pacers players' despicable actions of the night, but they still had to be led into the locker room. As they were practically carried into the tunnel, the Pistons fans continued to show no mercy to their enemies. Disgusted by the actions of the opposing team, the fans continued to rain down cups of beer on the Pacers players and staff, with Mike Breen saying, "What a disgraceful sign by the Pistons fans here." It was clear that this was a dangerous situation for all involved, with Rick Carlisle later saying, "I felt like I was fighting for my life out there." Finally, things calmed down, and the players made it into the locker room without further incident. But it was clear that several players' reprehensible actions needed to be dealt with, and the aftermath of the Malice at the Palace would alter the course of NBA history forever. The very next day, David Stern released a statement saying, "The events at last night's game were shocking, repulsive, and inexcusable." He would go on to promise an investigation and made it clear that the punishments would be severe, and they were. Ron Artest was suspended for the remainder of the NBA season without pay. He would take the biggest financial hit of all involved, losing over $5 million. And to this day, his 86-game suspension, which includes playoff games, is the longest non-drug related suspension in NBA history. As for the other players, Steven Jackson received a 30-game suspension. Jermaine O'Neal got 15 games, and Ben Wallace was suspended for 6 games. Several other players were also suspended in the aftermath, and the situation was serious enough to be taken to court. The players in the incident got off with only fines and community service agreements, while John Green was charged with 30 days of jail time for throwing the cup that started this. And while all of this was clearly bigger than basketball,
he should get banned from the game. No, he didn't. What's 30 days in jail gonna do?
Well, the Malice at the Palace did have a huge impact on the NBA and the Pacers as a whole. Remember, after November 19th, the Pacers now stood at 7-2. They had just convincingly beat their biggest rival and shown the world that they were the best team in the Eastern Conference this season. But now with their star player suspended for the whole year, their title hopes were ruined. Indiana would go on to have a decent season, but again were knocked out of the playoffs by Detroit, creating a finals matchup between the Pistons and the Spurs that may never have happened if Ron Artest did not go into those stands. And speaking of Ron Artest, his career would never be the same. The next season, he demanded a trade and ended up on the Sacramento Kings. In Sacramento, Artest was solid, but he never quite reached the superstar level that it looked like he was headed for in Indiana, which raises a great NBA what if. How good would Ron Artest have been if he could just control his temper? And as for the Pacers, the loss of Artest led to a severe drop of talent in their overall franchise. Their team had lost not only their best player, but their heart and their soul, and it showed, as Indiana would not become a serious championship contender again until 2013. And thank you for watching, guys. I hope you liked this video on the Malice at the Palace.
Sheesh, shout out to this guy who made the video. I will have the regular video down below. I think it's over right here, right? Wow. First off, the fan that threw it, 30 days in jail. I mean, to me, he should have just got banned. I don't know, maybe not for life, but for a long time. And yeah, it just shows. Sometimes it's easier said than done, but just be able to control your emotions and think a second ahead is like golden in life in general. And this was obviously not worth it, and it ruined his career basically. Artest, haven't even checked him out, but he seemed talented. And then just a talent going out like this, it's not worth it at all. Just, but I understand, like, someone throwing things at you. I actually been there. We're not gonna talk about that. It was a little fine, but it was years ago. But anyways, I understand it, but I'm always trying to keep my cool. And especially when you work this much, when so much money is on the line, like your career and everything, and it just gets to you. And it seemed like tense in the first place, and then it just escalated and just got worse and worse. It's not worth it though. Anyways, comment down below. Maybe I have some people that remember this time and maybe watched it. Like it was probably live, right, on TV. But yeah, leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I will see you guys in the next video. Hopefully, bye.